doing versus allowing, things to happen, or that things are happening. Because on one hand, it's true, everything is literally just happening, and everything is causes and conditions. There is no way for us to be sitting here right now if it wasn't for the, infinite number of causes and conditions that have all led from one thing to another for this to fall into place. There's a layer of truth to the fact that things are just simply happening. What's really interesting is we still feel like we have this ability to control when we're, still working with the first Fetter stuff. It's like we believe that we have agency, we can control, we can make things happen. Of course, there is no agency there. There never was any, but there's a feeling that's carrying over basically because of all of your conditioning that's at play right now.
Hello there.
Hello.
Hello.
Great to finally meet you.
Likewise.
So happy. So happy.
And today I'm talking to Todd and Pernille. And these guys have been around, and they are pointing to know self through Fetters.
Yeah.
And I hear they're doing that in a different way. So it will be very interesting to find out and learn about that in a different way. And such a pleasure to have you here on this podcast.
Thank you.
Thank
It's a
you.
pleasure for us to
Thank
be
you.
here.
So happy for the invite.
Yeah.
And the podcast is called Awakening Now. So it's all about awakening before, during, after, whatever comes up, whatever is relevant. And I'm very curious to find out your definition of awakening. Each one of you. I mean, you may have different ones. So please.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I think my definition of awakening is that moment you really become aware that your thoughts are not true, that whatever thought you have in the moment, it's more like a post-it that is added on to an experience. So you have an experience that is happening, and then you have a thought about it. When you realize that those thoughts are just like clouds or sounds or anything you see, hear, smell, taste, touch, it's just a fleeting experience and not something that you can add on top of the experience. The experience in the moment is pure. There's nothing in that moment that needs anything added or subtracted. It just is. But we have the tendency on adding thought, feeling, and emotions to everything. And I think awakening to me is when we realize that none of those labels that we add onto it is actually true. And it's also what we work with in the Fetters, that in the first Fetter is realizing that the thoughts we add to something, it's not true. It's just a label that we add to something. So, for example, you have the plant in the background. When I look at that in the direct experience, it's colors and shapes. But then a thought is added onto it. It's a plant. And then I can add another thought to that thought, which is what we call a post-it that we add onto the thought, where I say, it's a CC plant. But then I'm no longer adding to the direct experience of colors and shapes. I'm adding to the post-it of this is a plant, this is a CC plant. Oh, I like that plant. That is another post-it. And then I start to have feelings and emotions involved in it. Oh, I once had a beautiful plant like that. And then there's a story and another attachment to it. So I'm so far away from the direct experience of colors and shapes in this moment that I have completely lost my track. And that's what we use the Fetters for, to, in our everyday life, be pointed to how we have diverted from the direct experience of just being in the present moment. And there are 10 different ways that we can identify. It's also then tied into old stories and old traumas and all of that we give tools to how you can untangle that knot and come back to just this pure moment where there's not even an I experiencing those shapes and colors, but it's just experience of shapes and colors.
That was amazing. Yeah.
Thank you so much. That's in full.
Yeah.
Okay, nice meeting you.
Todd, do you have
Yeah,
any different
I mean, it's
description?
pretty comprehensive. I think the only thing that I would add is that I think what's difficult is that we often talk about different levels of awakening. So for
Mm.
some people, just seeing through self is awakening.
Mm.
And then for some people, it's like it's not fully awakening until there is no even subtle identification left. And so I think we all come at it from different standpoints of uh, depending on the traditions that we come from, what we consider to actually be awakening. So I think it's actually a more flexible term than we consider.
Really like that. I
Mhm.
really like that because in the moment when you see through the first fetter or when you come through LU and you really realize, oh wow, there's not an I here,
Yeah,
that feels like awakening. The
absolutely.
entire world is changed after
Yeah,
that. You see everything differently. You don't take, you're in that honeymoon period where it really feels like something substantial have really, really dropped away.
yeah,
Then you will come out of the honeymoon period and life will start to happen
yeah,
and the onion of life will start to be peeled and you will get into deeper layers. And you're
yeah.
absolutely right that awakening is changing all the time, and it's also different for everybody. The way that I taste a strawberry is not the way you taste it, so
Yeah.
our experiences are different.
Yeah. Which brings us, you know, you were talking about the fetters, and it really brings us to that idea of in some ways of working with the fetters, there tends to be a belief that, you know, once you've seen through something, it's just gone. It's
Mm.
broken, it's never going to come back again. And as we're working with more and more people and, you know, seeing our own experiences and the experiences of others, the reason that we refer to it not as a ladder but as the wheel of identification, where it's something that's present all the time, it's because we see people who you know, you very clearly see through the self. Like first fetter seems to be gone. They completely know that there's no self there. Every time they look for it, they can't find it. It's just, you know, so absolutely clear to them. And yet years later they're selfing like crazy again because these things have come back online. In some cases, it's because they haven't continued doing the inquiry
Inquiries.
and continuing deepening the process, but also because there are other levels of identification that are at play. There's
Mm.
emotional identification and still pushing and pulling of wanting things and not wanting things, and the more subtle identification of separation between a witness or a me and other things, and it goes on. And so the way that we work with the fetters is like I use um the
Metaphor.
metaphor of like a tourist guide map where it's like, you know, you go on vacation, you get like a guide map, so you're like, oh, that building is that and it's from, and so you kind of know something about it as you're going through. And the fetters aren't real. They're just metaphors for ways in which we tend to get caught in identification throughout
Mm.
the day. And so it's like having a list of like, oh, right now I'm feeling like a self. Well, okay, stop and tune in. What feels selfie right now? Is it something physical? You know, are you feeling identified with the physical body? Is it a thought that came up that was really sticky and you're believing that thought? Is it that it feels like there's a lamppost out there and I'm here and there's some sort of distance between us that's creating this push pull against it? Is it because my coworker said something to me and I felt this contraction and all of a sudden got really angry for a second and that made me feel, you know, identified again? Is it because I'm identified with being absolutely everything and I've been walking around in a state of bliss where like I am one with consciousness, or, you know, I am whatever? If it still feels like there's an identity there, that this is still me in some way, even if it's a more expansive me than I've been used to calling myself in the little embodied me, it's still something that we can look into and go, oh, why is it that that feels
Mm.
identified? What is it that's here right now? And so each one of these is like a little reminder to just notice moment to moment as we're going about our day. These are all ways that we get caught up in identification, and then we have little tools to immediately employ, to inquire into it, to work with it, to have that just in that moment dissolve, and then in that moment you're free again.
Mm.
And it doesn't mean that it's never going to come back, but I think the more we do it, the more it becomes the sort of stable understanding and the stable way of being. And those old patterns that have created that identification and those patterns of thinking, they start to become less and less, they lose momentum. And so you start to get different patterns of being, which are much more expansive and less identified.
It's also super helpful to use the fetters as a wheel of identification, as a tourist guide, as Todd says. It's super helpful because there's no judgment in it. It's just that in the moment when Janice says something at work and you feel that, oh, that contraction, I am right, she is wrong, that you have the tourist guide to kind of like, without any judgment, pull yourself up on the 5th floor and look at the situation. What is it right now that is activating in your body? Okay, there's a contraction in the body. And then I have this thought that I need to defend myself. When she talks like that, I need to defend myself. Okay, in your bubble of reality that you have around you, the way that you view the world, there's mirrors on the inside. What is it actually in yourself that you're looking at right now? It's not about Janice. What is it actually about? And you need to be in a place where you're not judging yourself for that experience. And it might be, oh, wow, she reminds me of my mom, or she reminds me of my first class teacher, and that is actually what I'm reacting to. Is that contraction that I feel in the body that is so icky that I can't be with it. So I'm diverting with a thought about Janice being wrong and I'm being right, because then I don't need to work with this. Then I don't need to look at this. And with the wheel of identification, you kind of get all the tools right away. These are the 10 fetters. These are the 10 different ways that you can identify during the day. Off you go. And there's no need to be judgmental toward anything. There's no need to feel guilty or shameful or I shouldn't think like that when she said, I'm a bad person, There's none of that. There's absolute freedom in the moment, because you can pull yourself up on the 5th floor and just be curious to what is it actually that's going on right now? What is it that I'm diverting from that I don't want to look at? And it might be like second fetter issue, which is about the identification with feeling and emotion, where we very much go into old trauma, childhood trauma, because all of that is stored in the body. Mm-hmm. And when Janice says something, it makes a contraction in my body. I have a physical experience of a contraction in the body that I can't breathe. I feel I'm suffocating. And that is reminding the mind about a previous experience that we have had. That embodiment needs to happen. And that's another thing we do with the fetters, that we're very much about taking it from the mind and an intellectual experience into an embodied experience, where it's very much about connecting to the body, to the sensory experience, and detaching the thought to the sensory experience. So you can be with the body in this moment right now. Can I be in a body where I feel I'm suffocating when she says that, where I feel so shameful? Can I be in a body where I feel that? And then you detach the thought about it and just sit with the sensory experience in the body. And it takes between 7 to 11 seconds for the body to experience what it needs to experience, and then it's sorted. If you don't add another thought to it and create another story about it, then you can just sit with it in the moment. And we're all about the moment right now, because time doesn't exist. The past that you believe exists, where you had a very dysfunctional family, all the things happened, and you don't want to relive that is only in your mind. Time doesn't exist. It's not horizontal at all. It's vertical. Time happens right now. Your past is happening right now. Your future is happening right now, which means you can address it right now. And it can be done with no judgment to whatever you are experiencing, whatever is coming up to the surface. You can just stay with that. And that creates a freedom for you and for the other person. No. It's such a cute cat you have there.
I'm gonna have to let him out, going exactly. Nails on my back. Give me
I really like the metaphor for that as well, because as you see, the cat is sitting there watching, it's doing exactly what we just talked about. That is pulling itself up and seeing everything from above and noticing what is actually going on. And it is a bit like that anthropologist feeling that you have, where you just notice what is actually happening instead of being completely engulfed in emotions.
Yeah, but I'm gonna have to let her out.
Yeah.
She goes in my back.
That's very uncomfortable.
Hold on one moment.
Letting the cat out. It reminds me of Daryl. Todd, he has an interview series with Daryl.
Yeah, we have these bi-weekly meetings where it's basically one-to-one session, but he's got 10 dogs, and they're always coming either into the room or out of the room. And as soon as they're in the room, they want out, and as soon as they're out, they want back in. And it's just a constant flow of dogs.
Oh,
But
funny.
Yeah.
it's also such a good metaphor for how we feel as well, because we have the same thing. We have we're always in the moment right now, and then a thought comes about how this moment can be improved. Oh, I'm actually a bit chilly. I think I'm gonna take a jacket on. And then in that moment we believe that this moment can be better if I just get the jacket. So I'm gonna get the jacket now, and then I take on the jacket, and then I'm sitting and I'm in bliss, I'm content, and then I go like, I'm actually a little bit thirsty. I think I need some water. And in that moment again, we believe that this moment can be better with my jacket on if I just get a glass of water. So I get the glass of water, and then it goes on and on and on and on. And it's the same we see like in the cat, that it wants to do something. The moment it does it, it wants to do something else. Or Daryl's dogs, the same thing, that they want to be in the room. But when they're in the room, they want to get out of the room. It's because there's something right now that doesn't feel right. And whatever can make it right is probably the thing over there. So it keeps
Or
us...
you can just say that everything is self-adjusting. It's not like a wrong thing. It's just everything constantly self-adjusting or falling into place.
Yeah, I think with us, it's a really interesting concept actually, because I feel like with us, what we see a lot of times is that the self-adjustment is just trying to get away from the discomfort, which is,
but it's
largely
just happening.
It
Self-happening.
It is, but it's an interesting thing, because this is where it's a really fascinating topic with the like doing the versus allowing, things to happen, or that things are happening. Because on one hand, it's true, everything is literally just happening, and everything is causes and conditions. There is no way for us to be sitting here right now if it wasn't for the infinite number of causes and conditions that have all led from one thing to another for this to fall into place. So there is a certain amount of there's a truth, there's a layer of truth to the fact that things are just simply happening. What's really interesting is we still feel like we have this ability to control when we're, still working with the first Fetter stuff. It's like we believe that we have agency, we can control, we can make things happen. And it seems to be related to, well, if you have that feeling, actually, I remember, I think it was Vivian who used to guide through LEU, and she had a great phrase that I heard on an interview, that if it feels like you can still do something, then do something. And it's like, as long as the feeling is there that you can have agency, then exercise the agency. And of course, there is no agency there. There never was any, but there's a feeling that's carrying over, basically because of all of your conditioning that's at play right now. Everything that I've been through in my life has shown me, everybody's told me I have agency. It feels like I want to reach out and grab a cup, so I grab a cup. And it's like, that's how we navigate our life. But then once you start to investigate and do the inquiry, then you start to recognize, oh no, I don't have agency at all. I don't have any of that. But there still can be, even after that, we talk to people who you've clearly seen that there's no agency. And yet there's still the risk of, if we, because of the conditions that are there, it's possible for them to take on the new belief that there's nothing to be done, and so I just don't have to do anything, and I'm just gonna go hang out and watch TV. And that belief is itself another cause that's leading to the condition of not doing inquiry. Whereas if you get the prompt that inquiry helps you see through this stuff, that can be a cause that leads to somebody actually doing the behavior of inquiring and then seeing through these illusions. And so it's like there's like a seed on the path that kind of pushes it. And so when we talk about like the fourth and fifth fetter of wanting and not wanting things, it's because there's a sensation in the body that has arisen, which is uncomfortable. And it might be just the feeling of dryness in the mouth that is calling out for a drink of water. Or it could be something where, like we said, somebody, you know, at work insults me or says something that for some reason causes this contraction that comes from some, you know, root. It could be many, many years old, but it causes some discomfort in the body. And our way of just biologically effectively, like you said, self-adjusting is to not feel that discomfort.
Yeah.
But the problem is the way we do that is often to deflect with either, you know, drugs, alcohol, getting angry, yelling at somebody, reacting in some way where you are lashing out, causing more suffering in the world, or just numbing yourself with, you know, going on the phone or watching TV or something like that. We have all these different ways of distracting from that discomfort. And so the kind of the seed that we put out with this kind of work is that if you're in that kind of situation, there's another way of operating. Instead of just throwing a chair across the room or punching somebody,
and say it was just a reaction.
It was just a reaction, just happened. You can actually feel the sensations in the body, and there's a way of just stepping back and going. It's a level of like the fifth floor view, like you were saying with the cat, where all of a sudden now you're seeing that I'm not this tension. I'm not the clenching in the body. I'm not the thoughts that are arising saying my coworker is such a jerk and all of that stuff, and they shouldn't have done this, and I'm gonna go. It's all of that is secondary. You recognize that none of that is you. It's just a TV playing in the room. It's just sensation. And there's this bigger spatial awareness around it where these things can be. And you can really investigate them in the moment and just recognize that they don't have to lead to a reaction. I don't have to grab the phone and scroll and distract myself. I don't have to go to the refrigerator and get something to eat to numb this discomfort. And so that's really what we're pointing to, is that we do very much self-adjust and self-soothe, but sometimes it causes more and more of that suffering for ourselves, suffering for others in the world, and it creates that more and more of that identification that it's okay that I am reacting in this way. I'm justified because they said this, and that's just not okay. And it's just reinforcing that sense of a self. Whereas we have the opportunity to step back and get that distance.
It's also really noticing if you have a pattern in your self-adjustment. If the way that you self-adjust is always, you know, it's very predictable, that it is the same thing that you do, that every day I come home from work, I have a glass of wine or beer, because I'm just self-adjusting from the stress I have experienced at my work. In our world, we would say that is bypassing, that there is something happening in the moment that you are not staying with. There's a contraction happening in the body that might have happened previously, but now you're reacting to it. Any reaction that you have is a diversion from something else. And it might be that it's super uncomfortable, you know, to look at, for example, that you really do not like your work. It's paying well, but you're really, really not happy there. And so for 8 days, 8 hours every single day, you are really pushing yourself and being forceful, and you're not in a state of flow, which you will be in when you're not attached to all of those hooks anymore. But because you are pushing yourself and you're forceful every day that you're at work, you have to kind of like reward yourself when you come home and you're absolutely exhausted. So what seems to just be me adjusting in the moment could be bypassing over a very toxic underlying belief about you not being okay, saying that you don't want the work, and not changing, you know, lane or anything. So there is a very, very subtle identification with an I in there that is avoiding to look at what is really painful in the moment. And what we propose to do is feeling into that contraction that you feel in the moment when you come home, and you feel that you're just self-adjusting to the stress. Then in that moment, stay with the body. How can you be in a body that has this contraction where you do not reach out for the wine, but you just stay and make an inquiry in that moment right now? Who is it that needs to self-adjust? Who is it that in there that feels that this is too much and now I need to navigate outside or around this so I'm not suffering about this anymore? So it's just noticing every time that we do something. Notice if we start to do things with a pattern, and that is coming back to what I talked about before, what we call the bubble of reality. The way that we navigate life is always the same. It's very, very predictable. Once you have seen a person for one day, you can absolutely predict how they're doing everything in their life, because everything is causes and conditions. There's not a separate self in here, a little avatar sitting and controlling the meat suit walking around in life. That is not there. There's nobody in here. It's causes and conditions. We react like we have always reacted, and that is what makes it predictable. And if we are self-adjusting in the same way every single day, it's because there's an underlying belief in navigating that self-adjustment.
I have to ask you one question.
Yeah.
Right. The wheel of identity. Great. Define identity. So it's very clear what we are talking about, because we are talking about being and we're talking about identifying. And this word is used very much.
Yeah.
But what exactly is identity?
Yeah. Such a good question. Do you want to go first?
No, you go first.
So when we talk about identification, we're really talking about anything that feels like it's self-referential, it's self-directed, it's creating something here that isn't actually here. It's putting things in the world in perspective of something here, that there is some sort of locality, there's some sort of, we do it so often throughout the day. It's like rarely do we speak without using some sort of indication that there's some sort of identification present, that there is something which is pointing to a desiring being here, or something that feels like it can name itself, or it can name some aspect of the experience. And even if we label it as the kind of being, like if there's a way of being where it is just simply this, which is unworded, right? Like you can't label it. But as soon as we start to put a label on it, and as soon as we start to feel like there is a being, like I am associated with this kind of spacious being that is different from the way that, I used to be identified with the small contracted little self inside the body, but there's still a feeling of identification there. It's much more subtle, but it's still something that is clinging on to a belief about things being a certain way, and about there being a limited perspective in that, even if it feels at times like it is a pervasive 360-degree view, there is still
a center of that 360-degree view. If there's a 360-degree view, where's the center of that? So the moment you notice that there is a center here looking out, and there's something out there that can look back at something, then there's identification happening. What we talk about very much in the 8th fetter is that when you do not identify with an I anymore, and you know that there's no I anywhere, you still have what Todd talks about, that there's still that sense of a being happening. And people might talk about it as, it's expansive and it's magic and it's colorful and it's free flow and it's just, but the moment you have an experience and you verbalize it, the moment it's taken from a very pure, raw experience into something that you can explain, like in the Tao, the Tao that can be told is not the internal Tao, that the moment you can put a label on it, you have minimized the experience. It's no longer that pure expansive thing, because you are now putting a label on it and you're now making it into an I am experiencing that pure magic that is happening. Hang on. Who is experiencing here? Where's that? You all of a sudden created something out of nothing that is not there. What we talk about when it is, awakening, and the way when we talk about being, it is that cannot be named. So there's an expansiveness where there's no one experiencing anything. There is just this. And the moment we put a label on it, or we put a name on it, or we put words on it, we're minimizing the experience and making it into something that is not.
So coming back that thoughts are not true.
Absolutely.
Exactly. And feeling and emotions are not true.
Yeah.
We tend to have this idea, but you made me so angry. I am in my right to defend myself because you made me. Oh, hang on. There's no feeling or emotions that are true either. Feeling and emotions is a contraction in the body with a thought added to it. That's it. We're back to the first fetter 1. There is no separate self. We're back to believing that there is someone here that needs to be defended. And then we put that little kernel, like Todd said, there's a little kernel in the middle of the 360 degree of openness that needs to be defended. And that is the identification.
So identification is basically a thought, a feeling or sensation, contraction.
Feeling and sensation are thoughts. You can't have a feeling without a thought. You can have for example, okay, I would like to unpack that.
Let's see. You can't have a feeling without a thought.
Nope, you can't have a feeling without a thought. If you really slow down and zoom in, whatever feeling that occurs.
I think define feeling so that it's not so that we're not just talking about raw sensation, but
yeah, if we talk about the feeling of your bum in the seat, that is a sensory experience that is picked up by the receptors in the body. That type of feeling, yes. You have a sense, you have a meat suit, you have receptors, you can still feel your bum in the seat. It's not the feeling I'm talking about. I'm talking about the feeling / emotions. That you can't have a feeling / emotion without a thought. Feeling and emotions are thoughts.
Right. So the way I see it is that, okay, there is this physical thing going on here. There are thoughts, and the emotion is just this body's response or reaction to the thought. So yes, there is a thought body either relaxed or is contracted. If it's a lie coming in, some thought that is not true, that is being believed, then the body obviously will go, that hurts.
Yeah.
And it goes like this. Yeah. But I wouldn't say that emotion is the same as a word or the same as the image. They work together. It's like a emotion, thought, and an image. But to say that thought and emotion is the same, I don't see that.
So you're defining emotion as the sensations in the body primarily then, right?
Sometimes it's in the gut, sometimes in the heart, throat, whatever contraction. That's not a thought. That's body's response.
Completely. So so we use the term emotion as thought plus sensation. So so we're saying that the sensation is there as its own constituent reality, and then the thought is there, and then the two of them together are what we call you can emotion, because you can have a contraction in the body and it needs a thought to label it as being sadness or anxiety or
even
excitement
nausea or contraction. I feel I'm suffocating. I feel slightly nauseated. That is a label. That is a thought that is added to the sensory experience. The sensory experience is something undefinable that is happening in the meat suit. For example, let's say contraction in the stomach. You feel slight thought to that, slightly nauseated feeling, saying that I feel anxiety right now. That is a thought that is added to the sensory experience. So what we call an emotion is a sensory experience with a label on it, a thought saying this is anxiety.
Okay.
And because
I just separate the words from images and from energetic.
Exactly. Because thoughts need to happen. Otherwise, it's just sensory experience. Something is happening here in this area here. Even by that, I'm minimizing, but now I'm trying to explain it. So something is happening in this area here. That is this on par with what I talked about previously with behind you. It's not a plant. It's colors and shapes. The moment that I say that is a plant, I have minimized the experience from the colors and the shapes into putting a label on it. That is a thought. It's the same with the sensory experience. You have something happening in this area here, and then you add a thought to it saying, that is nausea. Oh, another thought is adding, I'm nauseated because I feel anxiety. So it's a label on a label, a thought on a thought. which means that there are no real emotions. It is a sensory experience with a thought added to it.
Yeah.
And that thought can be traced back due to causes and conditions. That thought can be traced back to when you were in the womb, because it's a contraction that is happening in the meat suit, and the nervous system and the receptors in the meat suit has been there since the second trimester.
Oh,
So
interesting question then. How about babies? They look happy. They cry. They upset. They have no language. What's that?
It's actually very interesting, and it's what we use in the embodiment part of the awakening. We have a part of the awakening curriculum that we call the unfettered embodiment, which is where you get back to detaching all the thoughts about a sensory experience in the body, and you allow the body to move in whichever way that it needs to move. You can actually see on babies where they are in their physical development, because, for example, from the second trimester to you're about 3 months old, it is the basis of the first fetter and the second fetter which is created there. Babies, they're very much about having their needs met, very much about reaching out. I need food, I need a clean diaper, I need to sleep, I need to rest, I need physical contact. And babies are very much about reaching out. And you can see on a baby that they have like this outward energy going from them. If they're not met, then they get a retracted energy. So it's like you can see on a baby that is kind of like retracted. There's no life in the face. It's almost like a wax face that they have. They're not asking to have their needs met anymore. And that goes with it. That continues. You can see adults that are kind of like retracted in there. They're kind of like wax faces. They're kind of like retracted into themselves. That is tied back to how the nervous system was built from the second trimester to 3 months old. And we keep developing in our muscles, our tendons, our ligaments, our nervous system. Everything is developed until we're about 12 years old. And that is what we are tapping into when we work with the sensory experiences, because what we talked about before but this is anxiety. I have a feeling of anxiety. That sensory experience that is connected with that thought can be tied back. You can find out where that comes from. But when we work with the embodiment, we do not create any stories. We allow the body to express what it needs to express, because there's no one eye here looking at my story. There is no story. There's a sensory experience that has happened in the body that the meat suit has picked up on, and that is what we allow for the meat suit to express. So there's no I. I can't sit and talk about my childhood, and then my dad said, and my mom did, and then the first grade, and all of that. That is stories. That is all in my mind. We need to detach the mind, all the stories, leave them be, and just allow the body to express the way that it needs to express.
To really get in touch with that.
Yes. And
emotion beyond mind.
Yeah. We just did a 7-day retreat that was focused entirely on
the embodiment.
So we have exercises that the people did every day, and all these different things to specifically get into the body, to just allow these things to express and come out without having any sort of story about it or going into the narrative history of it.
It's very much about allowing the body to express. We have different exercises that we do to get in contact with the different ages where the body was developed and where trauma has happened. And then when we do the exercises, and then Todd has made amazing inquiries that are asking you into it. And it's like a back door into all those old causes and conditions and those old traumas that we have. That it's a back door into it without placing a story, without creating an I that is looking into my trauma from my childhood. There's none of that. It's just noticing what the body reacts with when I do this exercise. When I move my body like this, what comes up? And it might be shaking or the body crying. The interesting part of it is when we have those reactions and we are like an observer. The body is completely taken over. It's moving and it's breathing, and you're sitting going, oh my God, what's happening here? Because the body is taken over and just reacting. So you might have experiences of the body crying. I'm not sad. I don't know what this is about, but tears are rolling down my face. Something is happening and the sobbing is happening. I have no idea what it's about, but it was something that was locked into the body. And we don't need to know what it's about because that is just creating a story where there is none.
Yeah.
Sometimes the story needs to be heard too.
The danger with stories is that we do not have a perfect recollection of what actually happened because our brain wasn't mature. We didn't have the psychological or emotional or intellectual maturity when it happened. So we make conclusions that fit the age that the trauma happened. That trauma has grown with us. And if we make stories about it, our stories tend to grow with the experience. So you might have sit in second grade and you ran out of blue beads and the teacher went like, you have used all of your blue beads. And in you feel such shame about those blue beads. That feeling of shame goes with you. But when you're now in the age of 40, 50 years old, you're sitting and you're looking into that feeling of shame. It's no longer about the blue beads because the feeling of shame is proportionate with the age you have now. So the experience that you had in second grade, where you felt the shame, that feeling of shame has grown with you. And the danger with looking into the story is that we do not remember that it was only about the blue beads, because in the moment our world was crumbling, which means that if we, in our age that we have now, 50 years old, that we create a story about it, it needs to be proportionate with the world crumbling. It can't be about blue beads. And that's the danger with looking into the story, that the mind is so tricky and it's really trying to create something out of nothing all the time that is actually removing us from the core experience of shame that we need to feel in our body right now.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It's so fascinating because I get to talk to many different people.
Yeah.
And everyone shares their own unique experience, and what's true for one, it's not so true for another. And everyone can find whatever works for them.
Yeah, we're really happy that, especially now, I mean, I think it's such an amazing time to be doing this kind of work because everybody doesn't respond to the same sort of process or the same, everybody resonates or works differently. And so now, like, for the first time, we really have access to so many different methodologies and philosophies and approaches that everybody can kind of find what they really resonate with.
And we absolutely encourage everybody who's working with the Awakening curriculum, we really encourage them to do whatever feels right in the moment without adding a story to it. If you are levitating towards something and that just feels so right, go with it. Go with it. Do not try to limit yourself and going, no. I'm now working only with inquiry. I'm not looking into any. No, because then you're creating an I that is creating a story and creating a limitation that is not there. So
but then again, we don't need to limit the story, right? Because sometimes the story is just like a delivery system. It says, okay, this needs to be said out loud or witnessed or something.
Yes,
we can't cut it out.
No,
it's also part of experience.
Absolutely. We use all the stories as a metaphor for something that needs to be addressed. So whenever you are in this, let's take the situation with the coworker, Janice says something and you get really, really angry and really, really aggressive about her. That story that you then have of your second school teacher that was yelling at you about the blue beads, that is a metaphor for what you need to address. Right. It's not about the teacher, it's not about the blue beads, but it's the metaphor about that sensory experience, that contraction that you have in the body, that the body is yearning to allow to let go of. So we absolutely support to listen to the story, not as a truth, but as a metaphor for something that needs to be addressed.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think it's relevant also to bring up that, when we talk about the 10th fetter, it's the wisdom of ignorance. It's the wisdom that we really never know anything for sure. And so we have all of these, metaphors for the fetters and all the ways of working and philosophies about how the body develops and all of these things. But ultimately, we also have to be completely honest and aware that we don't know anything, that there's no way of knowing for sure that anything is going to lead the way we expect it to be. You know, we never know how things are going to turn out. What one thing is going to, we think that the next step we take is going to be the correct one. You know, this just seems like this really fits. And then it goes a way that's completely antithetical to what we had expected. Or
it's also
that,
why, like I said, we really support people doing anything, you know,
exactly.
whatever feels right in the moment, do that.
Because ultimately you want to be in that we call it the ninth fetter flow, where it's really like intuition is just moving the show, that there's no second layer of debating, that sort of internal debate or conflict of doubt about, well, maybe I should do this, maybe I shouldn't do that. And it's this going back and forth, vacillating over and over again, where we think it's based on the belief, very erroneous belief, that we know what a possible outcome is going to be. You know, I can say, should I go on this retreat or shouldn't I? And I can make a list of all of the pros and cons and go all of that, but you have no idea what's actually going to be on the other side of that retreat. What is the real experience going to be? The mind doesn't know. The mind creates stories about all the possibilities, but it's just being created by the mind, and it doesn't have that access to really know whether this is a good thing or not. And so I recommend like just sitting, you know, in a situation like that, just kind of sit or stand and allow the body to just, you know, which way is it going to go? Like see where it's actually going to move. And that is the kind of inner wisdom.
And it is that when you are no longer interfering with the body just moving in that nine fetter flow, then you suddenly find yourself standing by the sink drinking a glass of water. You had no idea that you were thirsty. There was not even a thought about, now I'm going to the kitchen, now I'm gonna take a glass, and now I'm gonna have a glass of water. It's just that moving with whatever is alive in the moment right now.
And what if it's a glass of wine afterward?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I'm so glad you said that, because I was just going to say it's a different experience when you are driven by that just natural instinct, but not because there's this feeling of doing it because I'm escaping something or because I'm avoiding something.
Or
You can still have a glass
justifying
of
or
wine.
listening to all these stories, what shouldn't be happening.
Exactly. A glass of wine after work is still totally fine. It's not that there's like a moral judgment to any of it. It's just recognizing why we're performing that behavior. Is it because it's just this natural thing, or is it because this has become a routine and it feels like if I don't do it every night, something is missing? Am I doing it because I come home so stressed and exhausted that I feel like I need this to either numb me, or this is my reward for having given up the past 8 hours of my life in a way that I completely am miserable and feel like I've, you know, absolute slavery for 8 hours. And this is my little me time and treat to me to say, you know, what is, it's like really just getting underneath that. What is the motivation for this action? Is it a spontaneous glass of wine, or is there a lot more underneath there that needs unpacking, feeling, releasing?
Well, we actually know what feels good. I mean, if you are in the moment and it feels good, it's good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even if you're having a glass of wine. But if you're having that glass of wine and there are so many judgments about it, that's where we need to look into it. These stories are here for the reason. They say there is something unresolved.
Yeah, exactly.
If
and
the
then
wine isn't just a glass of wine, then there's something more to be looked into.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Wonderful to see you both so passionate and excited about this.
We do love this work.
Yeah, we do. Yeah.
And like I said, we're just came off of talking for 4 to 6 hours a day on this
7 days.
7 days.
It was amazing.
So we're kind of all wound up.
And also we have a really lovely, amazing community on Discord where people where they can reach out, and there's so many supporters in there. So if you have any kind of question, or if there's anything that you know are in doubt about something you're dealing with, then there's always somebody there.
Right. So how can people reach out to you, please?
Well,
few ways.
yeah, there's actually lots of ways. There's the awakeningcurriculum.com. That's our homepage where all the fetters are, all the material, everything is available for free. There's Unfettered Mindfulness, which is our channel,
On
YouTube channel, which is more about inquiries and really looking into all those.
Yeah, there's a lot of inquiries, meditations, different things. Also, I have the one-to-one sessions with Daryl where he's been gracious enough to have it all public. So we have an ongoing series with him.
Oh, cool.
We have Discord, which is our community where people that are doing the curriculum, they're active there, and they're doing the curriculum and watching videos, and if they have any questions, they ask the questions. There's so many supporters in there that people that have done the curriculum, they're further down the line or they're redoing the curriculum. And there's, yeah.
Speaking of which, the Awakening Curriculum YouTube channel. So we have two YouTube channels. We have the Unfettered Mindful and Awakening Curriculum.
All right. I'll put that in the description. I'm gonna send me links.
Yeah.
Good. And then people can always reach out to me. It's unfetteredmindfulness@gmail.com. And I can give them access to Discord. We also have every other Tuesday, we have a free live Zoom meeting that people can attend, and it's like a live inquiry meeting. And so that's a possibility. So I can give them access to that. We're paused for the summer, but starting probably in September, we have a Friday Q&A.
Which is specifically questions about the curriculum. If you're struggling with something, understand, for example, like, but what if a glass of wine is just a glass of wine? One of those things that you're struggling with, which is specifically about the curriculum, then is for the Q&A on Fridays. But we have summer holiday for that right now. But normally it's on every other Friday. And then the Tuesday meeting, it's on every other Tuesday. So there's a meeting every week that you can attend to. And
wow.
And then there's the Unfettered Embodiment retreat.
Yeah, which is still available for purchase. There's like 34 videos now that encompass it. And so we had like 20 some videos ahead of time, and then we had the live component with a sofa sit and a Q&A each day, and then they all got recorded. So now you can still buy the entire retreat to just do it on your own whenever you want, and it's a full 7-day.
It is, if you would like to have the embodiment part of the awakening process, where you do what we talked about, that you do different exercises and you can activate the body into releasing old experiences, old traumas, and then you can reprogram the body afterwards to get into where you are at right now.
And can you do that on your own, like just listening, watching videos, or do you need somebody to support you?
No, you can do that on your own, because it is the body, it's you getting out of the way and allowing the body to move the way that the body needs to move. You do different things, breathe in different ways, do different exercises, and then the body will release. It's like pushing a play button and the body releases, and you just, get the mind get out of the way, and you just allow the body to react the way the body reacts, and then you reprogram into where you're at now.
Oh, that's fascinating. I'm gonna have a look.
That is the only so far, that is the only thing that is for purchase, because we don't want people just to do it freely on YouTube. We would like to have some kind of knowing who is doing it, who is in the process, so we can be there if they need any type of help.
And they also, people who purchase that have access to special rooms on Discord, because we have like the main public rooms, but then we also have some special private rooms on Discord where just people who do that have chat, and they can do sitting, like we have like a video rooms for sitting meditation or quiet meditation and socialization and stuff. So it has kind of
there's also room for support where if you need specific support, you can go into the room, and we have 10 supporters at this moment, that then if they see you are in there, then they will jump in, and then you can have like a live chat like we have right now, where you can sit and talk with a supporter about the issue that you have. But that is part of the package. It's the only thing that we have that we're charging for, because we want to be sure that people are taken care of when they start to activate with the body.
No, and I also do paid one-to-one sessions.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
I do have,
You have a few left this year.
Great.
but I do one-to-one.
Yeah.
Other than
Oh,
that, we do.
wow. You're really busy. And you
Yeah, we
have
love it. We
so
love
much
it.
going on. Amazing.
Yeah, it's not work, it's a life.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it really is. And it's fun because we're so steeped in it all the time.
Mhm.
And it's like life is constant inquiry and constant exploration. And it's a delight to be able to be a part of it, and then to see people resonate with it and to really get something out of it, and to see the way that it changes their experience is just, it's so exciting to just,
Mm.
you know,
Flow with
see
it.
the ripple
Yes.
effect. Things just go on and on and on.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, from LU, like just seeing the ripples that go out of doing this kind of stuff is incredible.
It's wonderful. Absolutely wonderful.
Well, thank you guys so much.
Thank you so much.
much.
Thank you so much.
This hour just went like this. Very quick.
I know, yeah. It went really, really fast, but it's been such a pleasure.
Yeah, it was so nice meeting you.
Really nice meeting you. And thank you everyone for watching, for listening. And if you want to get in contact with Todd and Pernille, please do so, or send me an email if you want to work with me. That's fine.
Yeah.
And till next time, bye for now.
Bye.